You're listening to the Valley Current.
Wow, Anne, you look perfect.
Yeah.
You know, the Valley Current is a very interesting podcast that I've run for, I think it's going on like 10 years. And
Really?
we've interviewed a lot of people. And, you know, some of them are people like you who are making a transition. And, you know, you are like very loyal to your previous employment. It's a good example of what happens. You have to be ready to have like 5 or 10 careers, in my opinion, these days. Um,
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think you know, but I was like the youngest tractor trailer driver in New York City at the age of 18. Actually, did the training at 17 and worked in the Fulton Fish Market driving a big truck up and down, you know, New York City streets from 3 in the morning to 11 in the morning, then went to college and eventually graduate school at night. It was a crazy period of my life.
Wow.
But, you
Yeah.
know, it enabled me to move out of my parents' house, get my own apartment. It's like the whole independence thing. And, you know, I learned a lot about people and learned a lot about working with really diverse people because I met a lot of other truck drivers, a lot of people working the fish market. I can tell some great stories, but I think at the end of the day, I count myself as having like 6 or 7 careers. And I
Wow.
think that's probably small because I've been loyal, I mean, just generally in the law practice to one firm, actually two, maybe
Oh,
three.
really?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you count them. So, you know, when you look at employment, you know, tell me your story because you get out of whatever schools you went to and then you start work. Like, tell me that story because I think we can wrap this into a bigger conversation about how you need to brace yourself for the future, which is very much going to be different than the past. And you are very AI enabled. So tell me that story because you're leaving one
Yeah.
position that I'm sure they're going to sorely miss you at some point. And that's, you know, tell me that story. Tell me where you went to high school first and where you grew up and that whole thing.
Yeah. So I was pretty fortunate, although I didn't think I was fortunate at the time. My parents, my dad was in the Coast Guard, and we moved from sunny Florida, from the Florida Keys to Alaska on an
Wow.
island. We called it the
Wow.
Rock. Kodiak Island. So they called it the Rock. We had, as a teenager growing up, all through junior high, high school, I actually worked on the Exxon Valdez oil spill. My
Really?
happened right when I graduated, so I got a lot of good introduction to computers and computer software and DBase 4, old school. Now I say I'm showing my age because it's really long ago.
Well,
Um,
that's like 1990s, right? Is that
yeah,
1990s, the Valdez oil spill? Because the funny story,
89.
I had a client recently that wanted to buy an island that was off of Kodiak, the city of Kodiak. There's an island called Dry Spruce or something, Dry Spruce Island. It's like a separate island that was for sale. You can only get to it with like a seaplane or a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the Silicon Valley guy, wanted to essentially relocate, have a backup plan B or C to relocate his family to this island in Alaska, right off of Kodiak, the city of Kodiak, which I think city of Kodiak is like maybe 5,000 people or less,
Exactly. It's yeah,
right?
not a lot of people. Not a lot of
Yeah,
people. Did he ever do it? Because I actually have a girlfriend whose parents own a Fogneck Island, which is an island right there in Kodiak, and
there's
she
like
lived with some
like
people. Yeah,
hundreds of islands that
yeah,
people are not aware that you can own. I mean,
right.
just not, you know, Hawaii has a lot of islands too, and I guess Larry Ellison owns a big piece of one of them. And in general, there are people, rich people mainly, maybe really super rich people, that are thinking, you know, maybe there's going to be like nuclear war, pandemic,
Right.
climate change, da, 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 da. And they're like, you know, I'm going to buy an island and just like put up a fence and, you know, sort of prevent others from getting on it. And they're getting ready for like a zombie apocalypse. And the deal didn't go through. I
Yeah.
forget what happened, but it was like an interesting deal because it was a
Yeah.
big family that couldn't agree on a price. So they were like ruminating. Mom and dad all died. There was a little fishing lodge on the island. I guess the
See?
guy,
Yeah.
right? There's like, you know, it's sports.
You're totally
Yeah.
unplugged.
Although now with you know, solar and with the SpaceX system. You can get
Exciting, yeah.
internet. You have
I have
internet.
internet on my boat,
You have
and I
internet on
traveled
your
all
boat.
over.
Yeah.
My home internet through Starlink is actually better than, or my boat internet is actually better than my home internet.
Right, right. And
Exactly.
you can be
Mobile.
anywhere. Like you can go, didn't you guys want to travel through the Mississippi River? Like what is that called? The Grand Tour?
It's
Didn't you
called
guys want to do that?
the Great Loop.
The
So
Great
yeah.
Loop.
Yep.
That's like a big deal. Did you make it?
Unfortunately, we didn't make it all the way, but we will do it again. We made it from Florida all the way down to the Keys. We accidentally got lost in the Keys for a little bit too long, and it just had fun and met so many interesting people along the way that we didn't want to. Every place was unique, and we didn't want to leave the people and the new friends we had. So we missed the weather window. We got up as far as Myrtle Beach and had to turn back around because it got too cold.
Because it gets cold and
Yeah.
you have to really be smart about weather and wind and so many other things, right?
Yeah,
But
you really have to be moving, you have to get to New York by May and then out of the Great Lakes by September. Those are your two pivot points.
because your
And
goal was to hit July 4th in New York Harbor, wasn't it?
yes, wouldn't that be awesome? I will do it. We will do it. Definitely.
I mean, it sounds like a life goal and a bucket list item, but you do have to have the time to do it, right? You do have to have the time, the money, the resources, the fuel costs. It's
Yeah,
not
especially
exactly,
now with the fuel costs, it's not very advantageous to do it now. And you think about, oh, great, I'm going to live on a boat, and there's going to be lots of free time. My husband thought he was going to be playing the guitar and reading books, and yeah, that never happened.
yeah, funny. So
Yeah.
so in general, when you get done with Alaska, how do you end up back in the 50 states? Where do you go next?
So I went back to Florida. All my family was in Florida. My dad retired from the Coast Guard. So we moved back to Florida, and I went to University of Central Florida. And I started out really liking numbers, right? And thought I wanted to do accounting and really work in the financial part because it was always very interesting to me. It was something that I wasn't introduced to a lot when I was growing up, like stocks and investments and business opportunities. So I actually went the route of accounting and quickly realized that I needed people. I needed the people, right? I needed more being around people than being around numbers, and that really drives me. So my godfather was head of radiology at ORMC, and when we sat down, he took me out and he's like, what about medical? What about going in the medical field? And my grandfather, like so many of us, battled with cancer while I was in high
Ouch.
school.
Ouch.
And during one summer, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to his treatments with him. And radiation therapy treatments back then were every day, right? You went for 30, 40, 50 treatments, and you really developed a relationship with your care team, your radiation therapist, your doctor. I really, really admired that. And that's where I decided I wanted to go. I didn't want to just have the one-time interactions with customers, right? Although that would be fulfilling. I really wanted that relationship and wanted to see them progress over their cancer journey and be there during that time with them. So I went into radiation therapy.
And so that's a very specialized field because it's like very technical equipment, isn't it? It's like a very technical high. I mean, I just had an MRI. It's a long story why, but basically the person that was driving the thing was like super competent in what they did. They got me in and out in like less than a half hour. And you're in the machine for about 20 minutes and it goes bang, 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 bang. I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's a trip. It's
I
quite a
actually
trip.
was, I actually led the launch of the MR-Linac in radiation therapy. So we'll get to that. So yes, I know the bangs can be kind of unsettling, right? So radiation therapy has come a long way. When I got into the field, it was very manual. It was pretty much, you took an image of the patient, you designed how to treat the cancer. You used lead blocks to kind of block as best you could the critical structures that you didn't want to treat, and you just treated the patient, and you treated them pretty much for the whole course. You did manual calculations, but it's come a long way. That was 2D. Like the radiation therapy, I think, is one of the areas in healthcare that has probably seen the most growth. Right? It has gone from manual calculations, toxicity to the patient because of overdosing on the critical structures, to really personalized care. A lot of technology, a lot of advances over. I've been in it for over 25 years. And every time I think we've gotten to the end mark, there's always innovation, especially with AI and everything coming out now. The innovation just in the ability to improve patient outcomes is extraordinary. So it's a very specialized field, and very rewarding.
And you stayed with the same employer, didn't you? Or how did you go in terms, because there are multiple employers in this area, right?
Yeah, so I started on the vendor. I started with the customer side. With 21st Century Oncology was a big managed service. They managed a lot of radiation therapies across the U.S. Right. So I ran their dosimetry school, so the school that prepared people to do the calculations. So I was with them for about 6 years. I was 7 years in the clinic, treating patients, doing their treatment plan, helping with the QA on the machines. And then I decided to go to the vendor side. So I joined Elekta, which is a global company in the radiation healthcare, radiation oncology, medical oncology. They are based out of Sweden. And I started with them over 20 years ago.
Wow. That's an
Yeah.
amazing journey, because very few people commit to 20 years of anything. I mean, it's like the law firms are like seeing partners leave after 20 years, and they're like, that's normal. And
It was, yeah.
that you are like really committed, and you made your way to a pretty senior position, right?
Correct, correct. I started out in training and working with clinicians and hospitals to be able to implement the software technology and the improvements with how we treated cancer. So I was on the training side, and then I moved to the global team as far as training and certifying our regional teams internally so that they can then train customers. So customers in China, all over the world, Europe, APAC in region North America. So I was able to get them ready. So concentrate on the training or the commercialization readiness of the organization. So that's where I spent most of my time at Elekta, is in product development and moving product from development into full implementation and full realization of value to the customer. So going from, a what's called an IMRT treatment, which is, able to modulate the dose more effectively than just a square field with blocks, right? So now we can modulate and break that field down into kind of like little pixels. And we could modulate and increase and decrease the dose in those pixels based on what was in the way of the beam, the radiation beam, what was getting treated. So then we came to introducing rotation of the linear accelerator. So now you have another way to manipulate that beam dose, right? So you're getting more and more personalized over the years, but also more and more complicated. Technology was increasing in complexity. So there was a big learning curve in the clinic, worldwide, right? And different type of cancers with different geographical locations. So that was really great, being able to lead the regional commercialization team.
I mean,
and the global
this is pretty expensive stuff, right? This is pretty expensive. I mean, this is like $1 million equipment, isn't it? It's like pretty expensive. And you're saying, you're essentially helping to make it work better, right? To make this work better. So it's gotta hit the bottom line in a real way, right? This must lead to more sales because you have repeat customers, or is that industry changing? Because I don't know what's happening. To me, it seems like medical is growing, It seems like cancer is growing. I don't know if it's because of
Yeah.
the plastics in the ocean or climate change or too much sun. Like everyone's got a different theory. Some people think it's the water. I know people that don't drink plastic water in plastic bottles anymore.
Mhm.
I know people that don't even drink water in like a styrofoam cup.
Mhm.
And yet they use a special like silver chalice, and they're like, can't have your water in
Mhm.
any kind of plastic. And forget about
Right.
tap water. Years ago, we never bought water. It was always tap water. It was like,
Exactly.
are you kidding me?
Our grandparents, right? With all, they never thought about the things that we think about today.
It's scary because I have
Yeah.
to tell you, my parents, they were so frugal. They were like, "What are you talking about? You want a bottle of Perrier? Are you nuts? It's tap water. New York water is like the best water. It makes the best pizza." There's all these theories about why New York pizza, but the one I think it's most
One.
credible is the water is like the
Right.
critical ingredient. Everything else is generic. But so you're doing this stuff and you're growing your credibility, and this is a public company, isn't it, that you work for? Is it private?
Yes, it's a public company.
And
Yes,
so at some point, basically, you decide it's time to move on, right? You transition.
well, actually, what happened is, so after I was in building the global teams and ensuring the commercial readiness of the organization, the important factor was now I was gaining all this experience and knowledge of what the customers needed. And I wanted to really be on the voice of the customer side and bringing that back into product development. Because what I was seeing is there was kind of a disconnect, in the mid to late 2000s of customer needs versus what we were developing technology wise. I think a lot of that was because the organizations at that point in time were more waterfall in their development. They knew what the customers needed at one snapshot at a time. And then by the time they got that product to market, customer needs were evolving and changing so rapidly. Right. So I wanted to move to the product development side. So I did move to the product development side for software. So the treatment planning software, the OIS or the databases that you use for patient records and diagnosis and all of the kind of what you think about when you go into a doctor's office. So being able to really drive the development to make sure we were meeting the intended use and user needs. So I brought my clinical background. I brought my background about what the service teams needed, what internally training team needed, right? Not just what did our customers need, but what did an organization need to really, truly have customers adopt the technology and realize the value of it, right? So
Right.
then I was in that. So I was the bridge between product development into the regional teams, into the customers, and then back into product development. And that's really where I spent the main part of my career at Electa.
Well, that's a huge value add, right? Because
Yeah.
you're seeing what customers really want, and you're feeding that back to the development team. Without that linkage, a business can completely miss, like Microsoft missed the role of the internet. They were
Oh, right.
so into like deliver shit on discs or CDs or whatever. They missed, oh, the internet's going to change that distribution model. The internet's going to make a lot of this stuff irrelevant. They're lucky they're alive. I have to tell you, they were totally asleep at the wheel, and
Really?
they might be like even now asleep at the wheel about AI because
AI.
they bought into OpenAI, and they've got a big stake. And if it goes public, they'll make a lot of money. But they probably don't have the same AI talent that they could have had if they baked it themselves. So they might play
Mhm.
catch up to Google. They might play catch up to other companies. And OpenAI now has said we're not just beholden to Microsoft. There's no more exclusivity there. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. Some people are big
Mhm.
believers in Microsoft. Other people are like, maybe the reality is now that Gates is gone or on his
Yeah,
way
they might.
out. He's got the cloud of Epstein over him. He's divorced. I mean, terrible situation for a trillionaire to be in. I mean, maybe he's not a trillionaire, but close to it. And
Yeah.
Elon Musk has a company that's going to deliver AI, this XAI that's part of this latest SpaceX thing. So there are a lot of players that seem to sprint ahead. Microsoft keeps churning out revenues and profits, though, and people like using it, or are probably captive to it. So what's your next big move? What you like, tell me what you're interested in doing and where you're headed and how you want to get there. What are you thinking?
So let's step back just a little bit, because I think if I tell you the project I was most uh, yeah, that I was valued most, that I was involved in, was bringing what's called the MR-Linac to the market, right? The MR-Linac, so this is where I'm seeing technology going. So companies are investing heavily in innovation. They understand clinical problems and they realize AI's potential. But what they're still, I believe, doing incorrectly or focusing still on is the software is going to drive it, or the device is going to drive it. And when I launched the MR-Linac, it was really to launch a solution. Customers want and patients demand a more integrated solution. And I think that's where AI is going to be a great tool, to be able to pull data from different systems and be able to really integrate that into a full workflow. That's just going to give, AI contouring, image reconstruction. It's going to improve data analytics, what's happening across your network, standardizing the care, standardizing how doctors contour and treat patients along, in these big universities. But anyways, MR-Linac was the first time we were thinking about, oh no, we got to think about AI now. It was the first AI that I had been involved with in healthcare. And where AI fit into this is that you had an ability now with combining an MR-Linac with a radiation therapy machine to see what was happening in the patient each day that they came in for treatment. You can see how full their bladder is, how full their rectum is. You can really narrow down that dose, like tremendously. You can narrow down the fractions. I mean, we were at a pivotal aha moment. We can see inside the patient. We can see soft tissue detail. Now, what are we going to do with that? If we couldn't bring in AI to be able to take that data that was given to us right at that second and be able to produce a plan, right, on the machine, and be able to deliver that plan at that moment when those critical structures were where they were needed to be. And we would have without AI in that workflow and looking at it from a solution, because you had to move data from different software platforms, feed that to the device to be able to treat the patients. Okay. So that's where I'm, and AI and changes in the healthcare industry is, I'm very passionate about helping organizations not just develop products, but how do we take that product and work alongside with customers to fully adopt, scale, train, do everything that they need to do to really utilize AI and the value that it's going to bring, right? You can release all these AI tools, AI contouring, but if you can't, customers don't resist technology. I think they resist change. And unless you can show them that roadmap and build that trust in their AI and how they're going to change their workflows, it doesn't end at a sale. It ends at full implementation, full adoption of the products, and full realization of value. And that's where I think I want to be in helping companies, no matter where they are in their growth stage, from startup companies to larger organizations, to make sure that they're doing everything that they need to prepare their service organization, prepare their organization, their sales organization, their marketing organizations, their training organizations, to really push past, we sold this, to we've implemented this. That's where I think the movers are going to come from. And that's where I want to be part of.
You've become an AI expert in a very specific field, but with generalization potential. Obviously, you can generalize. But you can be like a customer advocate for someone that's buying all this equipment, right? That's like, hey, we bought all this equipment and we really need someone to help figure out how we're going to actually deploy it effectively, where the workflow. I was actually very impressed by this MRI group that did the MRI, because they had everything nailed down. People would come in, they'd have them electronically sign the waiver forms and all that jazz.
Mhm.
Like they really streamlined it. Like they really had it down to kind of a step by step. We're going to get you through the system. Here's the waiting area. Here's the changing room. Here's this. Here's that. I was like, wow, they really systematized this thing. I mean, it was so lean too. I think they had one person who was kind of
Oh, they
managing
do.
the
Yeah.
walkthrough, and there
Yeah.
was no reception person at the front desk. It was like dial this
Oh,
number.
really?
Yeah, it was like really the opposite of what you expect. Like you expect a friendly face, say, "Oh yeah, you're in," and like they greet you. Like they had nothing like that. There was a sign that said, "Pick up the phone." I ended up saying to a couple of people in the waiting room, like, "Who's here? Is it empty?" And they said, "No, they're really lean. You got to pick up the phone." Like basically they got other patients
Wow.
to be sort of like their receptionist. So maybe they saved some money. It was a little weird, I thought.
You
And
thought it was weird?
huh?
Did it made you feel weird, like you weren't
It
getting
just it
the
made me feel like where's the check-in and where's this and where's that? And like usually there's like this whole managing front desk. And there was nothing like that. It was funny. I mean, there was a big waiting room and they had people waiting. And then he said, like, oh, there's a phone over there and it's a sign down. And then the person that answers, like, yeah, we know you're out there. We're aware. They had
we
probably a
can see you.
camera.
Hey, I checked you
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Like you're checked in. I mean, you could see it's a little
Checked.
bit like going to a checkout in a store and you're checking yourself out. It's weird. Like you have to put the
Mhm.
stuff on the scale and do a bunch of stuff. And it's like, where are the people? And like, yeah, we're getting rid of the people. You're going to do self-serve across the board. But that's like a potential very vertical thing. But you could be more broadly horizontal. And I can tell you about a book that I'm going to make sure I get for you,
Okay.
which you must read. And I've interviewed people about it and people that have become consultants under this process model that's called traction. And it was
Uh-huh.
by this guy, Gino Wickman. And Gino
Okay.
Wickman, I'm going to put you together with someone who's kind of a traction consultant. You can go out to lunch and he
Okay.
can tell you, like why he's paying whatever he's paying to like get the traction um, access because it gives him access to 900 different traction experts who cross refer business. So let's say
Okay.
someone gets a traction deal with a medical situation, they could
Uh-huh.
cross refer to you and you end
Oh,
up,
nice.
it's a really
Okay.
nice way to generate word of mouth leads. And effectively, you learn the traction principles for getting businesses out of a rut and fixing bottlenecks, which is really what you're
Bottleneck.
doing.
Yeah, right.
That's the
Absolutely.
whole business, right?
Yeah.
So in many ways, you're kind of like the expert looking in with a new set of lights and saying, well, maybe you do need to put a receptionist at the front desk. People are confused, or maybe you need a bigger sign, or maybe you need like a little robot with a screen on it saying, welcome, I'm your receptionist, and say your name here, and we'll alert the staff. Okay, go sit down. There are actually
Right.
rolling robots that do that now. So it probably would have been a
Yeah.
slightly better approach for me. I mean, I'm sure like kids are using their cell phone saying, yeah, I checked in myself, no big deal. They're used to
Right.
it. But you observe, I mean, a lot of it is just observing with a new set of fresh eyes what's really going on and then feeding it back in a way that asks all the right questions. And Traction puts it into like a 7-part system where the book really reveals all the quote unquote secrets. And the guy who did it was sort of someone that fixed his own family business and then went from that to fixing other people's businesses over the last 30 or 40 years. He was so successful. He sold the business to a
Oh,
private equity firm and now he's like the spokesperson, but he probably cashed out for like 10 or 20 million bucks and was
oh,
living
wow.
happily
That's
ever after.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
and he wasn't like as well educated as you are. And he was like just a regular
Just
guy who
found
said
need.
he found the need, he
Found
figured
the
out
need.
how to monetize it, he figured out how to attract people. He wrote the book and did it on his own, did the graphs. I mean, he did a really nice book. I think it's his second or third book. So he had some
I would love to read those.
yeah, he had
Yes.
a couple of failures. Like this book has actually gone over 1 million copies. So
Uh-huh.
it's actually viewed I mean, it's a lot of the Japanese principles about cutting waste. That's a big part of it. But
Yes.
I'm gonna make sure you get it, and I'm gonna make sure that you and I talk about it because I do think there's a lot of stuff in there that will systematize your thinking, and all of a
Okay.
sudden you'll be like, this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years, except I never really put it down in these words and with these graphs and with this workbook. And you'll be like, maybe it's worth learning more about. I'm not trying to sell traction to you, but conceptually, it is an interesting way when you're
Oh,
between gigs. It's a kind of an interesting way to plug into a community that can
see that?
generate leads. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a second idea which I'm not super enthusiastic about, but I know people who swear by it. They commit to something called the monthly Rotary Club meetings, which is
Okay.
like a business
That kind of
meeting.
sounds old school.
It's
Rotary
very
Club.
old, very, very old school.
Okay.
I mean, it's like a group of people. They've been around for a long time and they meet up, I want to say once a month, and there's different groups. Like there's one here in North Tampa, there's one in South
Oh,
Tampa,
nice.
there's
Okay.
bigger groups, I think, out in St. Pete. And they meet up to just talk about what's going on in the economy, what's going on with local businesses, what kind of business do you have? And they give people a round robin about,
Oh, nice.
I got a consulting firm, I use traction principles or whatever principles you use. I'm really specialized in medical. I understand what makes it work, what makes it fail. And all of a sudden you've got all these advocates for free that are saying, oh, I know a guy that really needs help and you could be the right person. Or I know a guy that really needs someone to help him put some AI into his workflow. Or I know a gal that was starting a business and she could really use some insights and help. And I
Right.
do think, I mean, I do really high-end stuff that typically costs a lot more money than people want to pay, at least here. I mean, it's a lot of it comes out of Silicon Valley where there's a whole different concept of
Right.
money. So most of the time that I've gone just as a way to see what's going on,
I think
it's
that's
been,
great.
but you do meet a lot of people, and you do meet a lot of people that are kind of like challenged by stuff you'll look at and say, this isn't rocket science. It's pretty
Right. Right.
obvious what's going on, right?
No, that sounds very interesting. Do you
Yeah.
see, are you going to the North Tampa one?
Well, I'll find the lead guy and get you
Okay. Give
connected
me the
because
information.
I think
Because I
it's
think being a group like
useful.
that just keeps you sharp and it keeps you, like you say, like what I have and what I can transfer to other industries. Like the security industry right now, I think is a big boom with AI. Like being able to use cameras that were just used for loss prevention to be able to market analysis, customer analysis, like, all the different things that you can use that information for. I think, that's what my husband's in. But I always sit there and there's so much comparisons, like you say, and it's a totally different industry.
It's
So
a
I think that
different,
would be
it's a
great. I would love to go.
it's really like getting to know a community that you're more an international player. You were all over the world for these guys. You did probably a lot of travel for them. This is more like local roots,
Oh,
local
nice.
businesses, and it's probably a different type of client that maybe you just do some of just to get the flavor for how you're going to make this transition. And then eventually there's a bigger marketing effort that happens on LinkedIn or elsewhere. And obviously, I'll give you the link to this podcast so you can use it
Okay.
for your LinkedIn because the truth is, people have to get to know you. And a lot of times they just want to hear your voice and they just want to see who are you and where have you been? I mean, look,
Right.
you've been like a captain to a boat, a ship or a boat. I mean, you've done some fabulous stuff that most people say, "Hey, didn't you have to dive in the water to get an anchor that got dislodged?" That's a
Yeah.
good story, right? You got a lot of stories
Exactly.
where it's like, "Oh yeah, we just lost a $500 anchor," and you're like, "No, we didn't. You're
No,
diving
we
in."
didn't. I'm going down for that.
I mean, that's an amazing statement in and of itself that you were capable. I mean, I don't think your husband was willing to dive in, not to criticize him. He was like, "Yeah, that anchor's
So
gone.
I
We're
can't
gonna
see.
go."
The water's too brackish. Let's just go buy a new one.
I mean, you did the right thing. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I would have
That's funny that you remember that story.
maybe
That's
I
funny.
would have done it. Maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know. It's an interesting question because I don't like losing stuff like that when there's some goofy shit that could be avoided, right? I mean, that's great. That's a great story, but it does say something about your character, which is you don't want to waste things that don't need to be wasted. And you really want to like challenge yourself. And you're willing to take the risk that maybe you would get some, stings from whatever that water had in it. And maybe there was some jellyfish. I mean, you probably didn't really think about all the consequences.
I didn't think about that. I would have been more embarrassed if I couldn't get it pulled up because everybody was telling me, no, no, just let it go.
But
I was
also
thinking about all the other stuff.
you have to you had to bring it up, and it was probably at the bottom of that water, so you weren't standing in the water, you were basically holding your breath. You didn't have a tank on, right? You were just holding your
It
breath.
wasn't that deep. It was like what,
10
probably
feet.
15 feet deep,
Right,
17,
so
18 feet.
right, you had to dive down, you had to
Get
grab
the
the
anchor.
anchor, get the anchor, and then you had to swim up with a heavy anchor on you somehow, right?
Yeah, thank God things are lighter in water.
No,
I would have never been able
seriously.
to
I
do it.
mean, I think a lot of people would be like, I'm not going to get crippled with an anchor around my neck and die. And the truth is, of course, there are people that can hold their breath underwater for like some of them. I think the world record is like over 30 or 40 minutes. It's like shocking.
Gosh,
And
yeah.
they go deep. So I want to congratulate you on that. I'm sure this next gig is going to be a lot of fun for you. And I would say, listen, you really should start taking notes that will go into your memoirs about the
Oh, really?
transition, because you will learn a lot about what the future is going to be, and you will be helping to create it. And that's
It's
always a beautiful
exciting.
thing.
Yeah,
It's an exciting time.
it's an exciting
Really,
time.
you have a
I'm
lot of
excited.
freedom. You have a lot of freedom. Like, it's a beautiful thing right now. So take advantage of it. It really is gorgeous when you have that. So take care.
Absolutely.
How do people reach you if they actually want to get your consulting services? Would they go to an email address or a website, or
Sure.
what do they do?
Sure. They can go to my email, which is ANEUGE00 at gmail.com.
So my suggestion, simple one, get a new
Make it
Gmail
simple.
address, get a new Gmail address like that's called Ask the Consultant, or
Ask
Ask
the
the Ex
consultant.
or
Ask
Ask
me
the Ex
anything.
at like basically simple at gmail.com. They don't have to remember your name, 00, they have to remember. And
That's great.
if they really needed to dial you or text you because they have an urgent situation, do you do that? Are you in the WhatsApp world with the number that they reach, or how do you
Yeah.
typically communicate? What happens?
WhatsApp is great. So my number's 813-842-9306. And
Right.
you're absolutely right. As I start getting more into this consulting side, I definitely need a new email.
Well, get a new email that makes it
Yep.
part of your website, which is really part of the whole Google suite. I mean, the one thing that Google has done, which really kind of amazes people, is you could set up a website yourself these days with Google Studio, which is available when you pay the $20 a month or whatever it is. And they have a tool called Stitch that generates a user interface instantly. And basically, you create a name that's evolved around what you're doing, whatever that is. Make it broad enough. Don't make it too broad. Like, you have to figure out what works, and you can get AI to help you figure out what works.
With you. Yeah, I
Brainstorm
love
for a while,
brainstorm with you. Yeah.
and then you do it, and all of a sudden
Create a whole brand.
you got a whole brand that really is your brand, and
I've been thinking.
that really travels with you well, because it's kind of your safety net for whatever goes on in the future. So I have a brand that I use occasionally and I associate with this podcast. It's called Idea Champion at gmail.com, which is, I see a lot of early stage in the garage startups, and it really is helping them champion their idea. So it's called Idea Champion, one word. It's not really a real word, and it's on Gmail. And I think there's an associated website, but it's not really law as much as it's startup consulting or startup expertise or startup mentoring. And you know what? If I got fired, like, I'm not that my own firm is going to fire me, but if I somehow, like if I were working at a law firm, I mean, I say this to people that work at law firms, you really should have like a brand for yourself, because a law firm is just, it's just a platform. It's just a platform. You might move to another platform, and you want to carry with it whatever that goodwill is. It's your goodwill, particularly in California. It's totally your goodwill. So no non-competes are allowed in California, and people really do keep a brand. And if they're smart, they build on that brand. And
I
that
think that
really represents the future in many ways,
I think
right?
that is the future. I didn't do that. And I look back at, if I would have had something like that, the 20 years and could have documented and celebrated and all my accomplishments and all the next level and been able to go back and, like you say, see that, and really have that as my brand. It's harder to do it in the after fact than it is to do it along the way. That's so important.
Right.
But now,
And
hey, I'm at a new junction point. It's time for me
you
to start, and it's time for me to do that.
and it's never too late. It's just like working out. It's never too late. People like, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that. No, never too late. I mean, I lost about 60 pounds from my terrible, terrible, nasty, worst, diet, worst exercise program of my life. I mean, just sitting down as a lawyer, listening to cases. And man, I'm so glad I do a lot of exercise now. I mean, basically, you can't carry that much weight. You got to focus on your health. You got to focus on all the things that matter. And once you have that all organized, everything else is easy. So congratulations on making the transition. I'll look forward to talking to you again. I'm going to get you the traction book and put you together with the guys who do the Rotary stuff.
That
Okay?
sounds great. Those are great. And the brand and that type of stuff, I'm going to do that. So thanks for meeting me and learning about my story and giving me some advice.
Yeah, talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.